What if I told you that behind the arrogance, control, and emotional detachment of a narcissist lies a wounded child? A child who wasn't seen, who wasn't loved for who they truly were, who learned over time that vulnerability wasn't safe. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most misunderstood psychological topics: how childhood trauma contributes to the development of narcissistic personality disorder, (NPD). Welcome to Behind Your Mind, where we unravel the unseen patterns shaping human behavior. If you've ever wondered how a seemingly confident person can leave so much destruction in their wake, this episode is going to shift how you see narcissism and maybe even how you see yourself. As always, drop your thoughts or personal reflections in the comments below. Your story helps break the silence. And someone out there needs to know they're not alone. When we hear the word narcissist, most of us imagine someone full of themselves.
Flashy, vain,
manipulative. But narcissistic personality disorder is far more complex than a bad attitude. At its core, NPD is a defense, a carefully constructed psychological mask, a strategy, not a lifestyle. So, the real question isn't, why are they like this? It's what happened to them that made them need to be this way. No child is born narcissistic. They're born wired for connection, for attunement, for being loved as they are. But when a child grows up in an environment where love is conditional, attention is inconsistent, or emotional needs are invalidated, their brain starts adapting, not for thriving, but for surviving. This is where the narcissistic seed is planted. Before someone learns to manipulate others, they first learn that being authentic is dangerous. A common thread in the childhoods of those who develop NPD is insecure attachment. This happens when caregivers are neglectful, abusive, emotionally immature, or unstable in how they respond to the child's emotional needs. The child learns, "My feelings are too much. My needs are a burden. I must be someone else to be loved." In that moment, the narcissistic defense begins, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Now, imagine being consistently shamed, ignored, or compared to siblings. A child in that situation might create a false self, a persona they wear to feel worthy. They become the perfect student, the achiever, the charming one. This false self wins approval, but it isn't real. It's hollow. It's fragile. And it must be defended at all costs. That child grows up, but the mask stays on. And that's how narcissistic behavior, the arrogance, the grandiosity, the cold detachment begins to form. What looks like ego is often an elaborate attempt to protect a deeply fragile sense of self. Mark grew up in a household with a highly critical father and an emotionally distant mother. Every mistake was punished. Every success was expected. There was no room for error, only performance. As a child, he learned that if he wasn't impressive, he wasn't loved. By adulthood, Mark was confident on the outside, but deeply insecure inside. He sought admiration, avoided intimacy, and dismissed others' emotions. His relationships were transactional, not emotional. And he couldn't understand why people always left. Mark wasn't just difficult, he was defended. His narcissism was a fortress built in childhood. Here's the tragic paradox of narcissistic personality disorder. The narcissist craves love, yet is terrified of it. They need connection, but fear being truly seen. They long to be admired, yet sabotage relationships where real intimacy is possible.
Why?
Because vulnerability was once dangerous. And in their inner world, it still is. The very thing they need most is what they've been trained to push away. Narcissism is often mistaken as a personality type. But what if we looked at it differently? What if we saw narcissistic traits as trauma responses? Grandiosity equals, if I'm special, I won't be abandoned. Entitlement equals, if I control everything, I won't be hurt. Lack of empathy equals, if I don't feel for others, I won't be vulnerable. The narcissist isn't being strong, they're surviving in the only way they learned how. This doesn't excuse narcissistic abuse, and it never should. But understanding its origins allows us to stop taking their behavior personally. It allows us to shift from asking, "What's wrong with them?" to "What shaped them?" And in that space, we reclaim our own power. Because once you understand the pattern, you're no longer trapped in it. Understanding the roots of narcissism doesn't mean we tolerate it. It means we no longer get entangled in its thorns. Most people with NPD experienced an interruption in their emotional development. They were often never taught how to regulate emotions, handle rejection, or express needs in healthy ways. So instead of feeling sadness, they show rage. Instead of feeling shame, they deflect blame. Instead of connection, they pursue control. They're stuck, emotionally, at the developmental stage when the trauma occurred. They grow older, but they don't grow emotionally mature. A key feature of NPD is the constant need for control of others, of the narrative, of perception. This isn't just about dominance. It's about safety. As children, their lives felt unpredictable. So as adults, they grip tightly to anything they can influence, often at the expense of others. Control isn't always about power. Sometimes, it's about not feeling powerless ever again. Many narcissists were only loved when they performed, got straight A's, looked good, stayed quiet, made their parents proud. So they learned, love is something I must earn, and if I fail, I'll be discarded. That belief doesn't disappear in adulthood. It becomes the lens through which they view every relationship. When love was a prize, not a promise, trust becomes impossible. A common misconception is that narcissists are incapable of empathy. In reality, some can feel empathy but repress it. Empathy requires vulnerability. And for someone trained to avoid vulnerability, this becomes dangerous territory. It's not that they can't care. It's that caring makes them feel exposed, unsafe,
Weak.
So instead, they choose detachment, not because they don't feel, but because they fear feeling too much. What we see on the outside, confidence, control, coldness, is often masking an internal world filled with shame, fear, and emptiness. Many narcissists experience inner torment they'll never admit. A fear of being seen as weak. A terror of being truly known. A belief that if anyone saw the real them, they'd be rejected completely. So they armor up and call it personality. Healing is possible, but rare and incredibly difficult. It requires the narcissist to do the one thing they fear most: admit they're flawed. Sit with shame. Confront the pain they've buried for decades. Some never do. Others begin the journey in therapy, especially when they lose something meaningful. But remember, it's not your job to heal someone who doesn't believe they're broken. If you love someone with NPD, you might feel stuck between empathy and exhaustion, compassion and self-preservation, love and self-loss. Let this be a reminder. You are not their therapist. You are not their fixer. You are allowed to walk away. Understanding their past doesn't mean sacrificing your future. Narcissistic personality disorder isn't a choice, but neither is your healing. By understanding how trauma shapes narcissism, we take the power back from confusion, gaslighting, and emotional destruction. We learn to set boundaries, to stop over-explaining, to walk away from relationships that feed off our self-doubt. Because healing doesn't start with fixing others, it starts with seeing clearly what we've survived. If this episode resonated with you, please give it a like. It really helps us reach more people. Subscribe to Behind Your Mind for more in-depth, trauma-informed explorations of emotional and psychological patterns. And tell us in the comments, have you seen narcissism rooted in trauma in someone you know, or even yourself? Your words might help someone find their way out of the fog. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and remember, I'm right here with you, behind your mind.